purple velvet. It's not quite the same shade of purple, but it is a shade of purple that suits me. The very process of drawing the flowers on the collar pattern told me that it's not right. So the collar pattern needs to be smaller. So it isn't a great big circle, but the neck size is now too small. So we have to go back to the drawing board. This is a much better shape than before now. Can you see how it's standing up? It's not flat on the shoulders anymore. I can now start embroidering the main pieces of the coat because the pattern for that is finished. So it is all change again. I am moving out. Actually, I'm moving out on the same day that I moved in this time last year. And this is going to be quite an interesting change because all of this furniture you see behind me that is missing hasn't just moved out, it's been sold. So I have had a thought for a long time that I would love to try a traveling lifestyle. So if you work online, most of the time all you need is a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. So I know a lot of people who live from Airbnb to Airbnb and they travel around. And I kind of want to try it, but I've always thought I wouldn't be able to do that because I need this fancy sewing room to do YouTube and I need the big sewing table and all the fancy stuff. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, what would a travelling sewing room look like? And wouldn't it be interesting for you to see me with the same kind of resources that most people watching have? Most people watching this don't have a big fancy sewing room and a big sewing table. What if I was also cutting out fabric on the floor and having a similar amount of resources to work with as maybe you probably do? Also, I have a visa application and I'm moving to the United States in the next year or so-ish. So why not start selling all my crap now and try out this very different kind of lifestyle? So I am going on the road with my trusty embroidery frame and a big piece of velvet. You know, velvet project, good choice for going on the road. And we will see how this goes. So I am getting rid of stuff. This is also part of this spiritual journey I've been on recently, that I'm not as convinced as I used to be that I need this much stuff. This month I'm doing a lot of sorting, selling, giving away, donating, as well as getting on with my embroidery sample for the velvet coat. But first, I have received a package that I'm rather excited about. So this is a package from a chap called Budd, who makes tools for reenactors. And he is regularly, I understand, at the reenactors markets that are held in the UK. And he is your go-to guy for specialist tools that you can't get anymore, like buttonhole irons and that kind of thing. I asked him whether he could produce a little tool that would help me make the flowers for this embroidery. Because I did look for something I could buy. I found tools for sort of paper crafts, but nothing strong enough to go through felt. So this is what he has made for me. I have a tool here that is very much like a buttonhole iron. I think that's the word for it. The sort of chisel that you use to cut buttonholes on 18th century frock coats, that kind of thing. So I've got a little tool with a little nip in the middle, so it's going to make two little cuts, like two tiny buttonholes side by side. And then I've also got a tool that makes a flower shape. It's a sort of metal tube with a flower shape at the end, sharpened. So that is the main tool with which I'll punch the felt flowers out. But the petals on the flowers have to move very independently, so they're very three-dimensional. And it couldn't quite make something that cuts between the petals quite deep enough. So I've got a flower shape. It's going to be a two-step process. So there's going to be the flower shape. So I punch out the flower shape Well, this is the theory anyway. And then I cut slightly deeper into the petals with this little buttonhole type iron. So I guess we ought to have a go and see how it works. I have also got a little sample of the felt I'm going to be using. I've already made this bag of all the little samples and bits and pieces for this project, ready to take on the road with me. I've been going through everything in the sewing room and going, okay, do I need this? And trying to pack things up ready, pack some things up ready to go straight to America in a year's time, and some things just to be ready if I need them. So I've got a little sample of felt here. This is half of an old chopping board. It's just broken in half. I'm just going to use it as a base because I'm going to be cutting things out on it. As you can see, I've tried one already off camera. So here's another one. I was thinking I needed to hammer it. I really don't. It's so sharp at the moment. So let's give this a go. There we go. It's my little flower. And then, because the petals move very independently, I've got another little cutter here to just cut a little further into the petals, so there it is. It's got very individual petals, so they'll sort of move around and become three-dimensional now. So here's a little sample of velvet, and let's sew it on and see. This is just average DMC cotton thread that I'm going to use for the embroidery. Let's take a strand here. It's a very small French knot. Clearly this is going to take some practice. I am not usually a person who does the sample before going into the real thing, which is not a good habit. But this time, considering the expense of the fabric, considering how velvet shows marks if you get things wrong, I'm a bit more willing than usual to actually do the sample. So I've just taken a hoop I had lying around and I've put the fabric together the way that the Royal School of Needlework book told me to, which is to put the backing cotton fabric in first, which is how I'll do it on the big frame. The cotton fabric goes in first, and then you hand sew a piece of velvet onto it. And I'm having my first go at doing one of the leaves. So this is this fly stitch. I'll do another one of those just so you've got one on camera. And I've been playing with this for a little while. As you can see, I've just done the stitches too far apart, so I'm coming back and doing some more in between, just to fill it out and try to make it look like the pictures of the original coat. And there you've got the comparison. You can't see the colours as well on my phone, it's a bit blown out and bright. I think we're there. It's looking reasonably similar. So I'm fairly happy with that. And then I've got my two little flowers here that have gone rather well as well. So you can see how this is starting to come together now. I'm going to play with this leaf a little bit more, and I'm going to try and do some of these stems as well. It's not a hard thing to do, but I've got to get the number of strands of thread and the kind of thickness of it right. So I am going to sit here a little longer and play with this sample between packing boxes. Then my next job is to think about what I can do to prepare for doing the embroidery when I'm about to move house. This is real life problems here, not just looking perfect on YouTube. So good morning, this is Saturday morning embroidery practice, and so this is Saturday morning embroidery practice. I'm still working on this sample. It's going pretty good, and we're seeing now the value of doing the sample, because this was my first leaf, and it's pretty good, but it's kind of ropey in places. And then this is the second one I've been working on, which is much better. The learning curve is so steep. The second one is so much better than the first, or at least I can see how much better it is than the first. And so leaf number 3 on the real coat is going to be even better again. So what I'm doing here, at the moment I'm doing it in quite a painstaking way because I'm still new to it. I've acquired a greater amount of respect than I even had before for embroiderers, because this is harder than it looks. And you can see how in the original one, the stitches are so beautiful and regular, even, and mine are okay, but some of them are a little bit ropey. We went a bit too long here, and they're a bit closer together in some places than others, so clearly with practice I'm going to get better. I've also figured out how to do these stems. I mean, these stems are very, very simple. It's just some threads laid down and then you sew over and over to just, it's called couching. Lots of threads together in a bunch and just sewing them down every few millimeters. But the important thing was to get the weight right. How many threads am I laying down to get it just in proportion? This leaf here I made sure was exactly the same as one of the ones on my pattern, so I was doing it at the right scale. So this stem here is 12 threads. 12 threads of this DMC embroidery cotton, 12 strands like that. And there's only about 8 meters on one of these skeins. So nobody for now buy DMC colour 738. Can everybody please not buy colour 738 for a while, because I think I'm going to need all of it. So the first one of these leaves I did was very irregular and all over the place. So the second one I'm trying to get a bit more precise with it and learn how to do it much more evenly, because I really like the feeling of movement in these leaves. I don't want them to just look flat. I really like this effect where they're sort of wider on one side than they are on the other. It makes them look like they're moving, and it makes them look like they have some life to them. I'm just trying to make it work and make it look reasonably like the original and yet be my own. And right now, to do these fly stitches, I'm using a second needle so that I can try and plan where my stitches are so that they're a bit more even. Instead of going all the way along one stitch at a time, which is what I did on the first one, I'm doing a few all the way along the leaf to sort of get the angle of the little V shapes right, and then filling in between. That's what I've done here. I'm just coming to the end of this leaf now, and I'm using this second needle to stick in here and figure out where I want my little stitch to cross over, so I can just kind of plan where I want it and just try to have a little more control. It's not easy to thread 4 strands at once. That's the other thing I did differently. This first leaf, I did 2 strands of cotton and then counted the stitches in comparison to the leaf I was copying on here, and it turned out I'd done a lot more stitches than this embroiderer had. So I've used, on this second leaf, I've used 4 strands instead of 2, and I've ended up with, I think, something that's more similar to the original. So it's quite a weighty embroidery, which makes sense because if it's not going to sink into the velvet, it's going to need to be quite a few strands and quite a chunky embroidery. So this all in all is just me experimenting and making most of the big mistakes on a sample, so that when I get onto the real thing in a little while, it's going to be immediately so much better than it was on here, because I've got all of the really stupid mistakes out of the way. There. That is significantly better. This is number 1, and this is number 2. And in the meantime, here are my 2 first little flowers. So they're looking quite flat right now, but I think that's probably how they would have, maybe how they would have looked originally anyway. I think they've probably been sort of manhandled around and crushed and ended up all over the place, which has probably helped them look nice and lifelike, but they probably started out a bit more like that. So I think we have a sample that I'm happy with. So I'm quite pleased about that. Next task is I have to put together a kit of everything I need to take with me on the road to do this project. So it is time to invent a travelling sewing room of some sort. So the painting is now done in here. It's a white room again, and most of the furniture is sold now, so we're almost ready now to move out and go on the road, and I'm no longer going to have all of the fabulous kit I had in this room. Most of it's going into storage, but yeah, I just need to figure out what the essentials are that I need to take with me. This is honestly what the contents of the sewing room look like right now. All of the books had to be suddenly put on a windowsill when the bookcase is sold. There's more books here, a little old sewing machine there. This is actually most of my stash. I've never been the kind of seamstress who hoards a lot of fabric, so luckily there isn't too much of a stash to put in storage. I have got a high hope that my idea of a travelling sewing room is something that fits in this. This trunk right here is from the 20s or 30s, and I've kind of got an idea that it would be nice to have a sewing room that kind of fits in a fun trunk like that. But it is a very heavy trunk, and it doesn't have a handle really, so it wouldn't be easy to manoeuvre around, so maybe that's too romantic. But we will see. What do I really need? There is more than that actually. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here too, and then, you know, all the costumes are now in suitcases, and yeah, a lot of stuff. So we have to pare this right down to what I really need. All right, I'm fairly confident I've got this pared down to the minimum. I've gone down from 2 sewing boxes to 1 and sorted out all the contents that have been an absolute mess for years. So I've got everything I need in there. I've got my little samples in there. So that's looking good. I've got all the books I need, which is really only 2 or 3, and my notebook. The clamps are for the embroidery frame, which is here. The new embroidery frame. I hemmed and hawed about buying a new one and then saw that this one was from a craftsman in Ukraine, so that was a good enough reason as any to buy a new embroidery frame. 1 meter ruler, pattern, smaller embroidery frame for the collar, the mock-up, and this is a lamp, just so I've always got really good light. And that's webbing for attaching to the frame. And then of course I have to cut fabric, and yeah. This brand new embroidery frame isn't big enough. By about this much. It was the biggest one I could buy. I think this is one of those times that one goes to one's dad and says, I have an interesting engineering project for you. In the meantime, I'll cut the fabric. It is wide enough though. Small blessings.
Years, and that still scares the crap out of me.
And that is now the same width as Victorian velvet. One of my aims for this channel is not just to give you entertainment. I don't want you to just sit there and watch me. I want to take you on this journey with me, to explore your creativity, to grow, to get to know yourself, and to tune out the noise of the world and tune into who you authentically are and what you really want, and create that in your world. And that's all before you even walk out the door in fabulous clothes of your own making and wow the world with your true self. if that's something you want to do. Every year at about this time, I host a free workshop to help you with some aspect of historical sewing, and this year is no exception. On April the 7th, this year's workshop will begin. The promise is simple. I'm going to show you how to take those great ideas you might have in your head for a beautifully tailored, swishy late Victorian skirt, and I'm going to give you the knowledge and skills you need so that you can create a really gorgeous skirt that you can wear with pride. This is for you if you love watching historical dress content on YouTube, but you'd love it even more if you could join in making your own. This is for you if buying clothes in a store because you need something just for now leaves you feeling ragey. It's also for you if you work hard to make something, but you always seem to either hit a problem and set it aside, or if you do finish it, you don't wear it out of the house for fear that instead of saying, wow, someone will say, oh, good for you, did you make that yourself? Maybe you've been sewing for a while, but you still feel like a beginner. Maybe you can put a skirt together, but it's not really comfortable and you feel a bit self-conscious in it. Maybe you're self-taught and you just have that nagging feeling that there are probably some gaps in your skills that would give you better results if you just kind of knew what they were. This workshop is even for you if you like sewing but feel like you're just not that good at it. Or if you feel overwhelmed by the thought of making a historical skirt because you feel under pressure to do it right, whatever that is. If any of this sounds familiar, know that you're not alone. You are in the right place, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. Here's how it's going to work. Over the long weekend from Friday, April the 7th to Monday, April the 10th, you'll get access to a bite-sized video each day that you can digest on your own schedule. I'll show you an original Victorian skirt pattern and how it was drafted from a person's individual measurements so that you can understand how these skirts really worked at a deeper level. And if you're ready, you may even be inspired to have a go at drafting your own pattern just like I do. Either way, understanding how the original skirts worked will help you make sense of them so that your skirt is much more likely to actually fit smoothly and look historical instead of just looking homemade. I'll show you how to avoid the most common pitfalls when you make a mock-up, know what to look for when you try it on, and adjust it confidently so you can go into making the final thing knowing that it's going to turn out well. I'll also show you how to use nifty original techniques to make your final piece a strong, accomplished, stylish skirt with life and movement you can wear with pride, even if you haven't been sewing for very long. And I'll show you the one thing that will make the biggest difference in your sewing so that you can actually get your skirt done and wear it out with pride. And finally, I'll give you an inside look at my online sewing school, Foundations Revealed, and our full walking skirt course that's about to begin, so that if that's for you, you can jump on board and actually create your best skirt yet, week by week over the next 12 weeks with much more support than you're used to after the workshop ends. And because I know you don't just need more videos, whether or not you join the full course, we'll be hosting a free live facilitated call just after the workshop to help you turn the knowing from this workshop into doing and apply these concepts to your specific shape, size and ideas. Even if you can't attend live, which I would highly recommend, the replay is going to be incredibly valuable to help you implement all that you learn. To take part, you need to sign up at the link below, and I will see you on April the 7th to help you make your best skirt yet.